First of all, though, let's move on to another breaking story this afternoon. Boris Johnson has been sent the findings of an investigation into whether he misled Parliament over the Downing Street parties scandal. And let's be joined now by Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun, to tell us what the implications of this might be. Hello, Trevor. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Vanessa.
So this has taken a while, but Boris has been presented with the findings, but we as yet don't know what those findings are, do we?
We don't know formally, but I think we can have a pretty shrewd guess at the outcome. This was a foregone conclusion from the moment that the committee began its investigations, and I think that basically we've all agreed that this is something of a kangaroo court. They were out to get Boris, and I'm sure that they will get him. Whether it ends up, as they might hope, in him being ousted from Parliament in a by-election, I think that's well and truly up for grabs, because a recent poll showed that no matter what the outcome, if there were to be a by-election, the voters of Uxbridge would back Boris over almost anybody. So it's a bit of a Pyrrhic victory for the committee if that's what they're aiming for.
Tell me a little bit about what you've just said, a kangaroo court out to get Boris. I'm quite certain at least a percentage of my listeners and viewers will query that and will think nobody was out to get Boris. Boris, as we know, was partying, partaking of cake, you know, secret Santas, all the things that we've heard about ad nauseam, when everybody else was not able to attend their own parents' funerals. Everybody else was, you know, isolating and utterly wretched and bereft and having the most hideous time of it. And Boris Johnson at the committee said such things as, well, everybody has to attend leaving parties for outgoing staff, when people thought, my God, my wedding was cancelled, you know, the wake was cancelled, all these incredibly important things that you really do have to attend did not take place or took place in this awful isolation. And nobody, I don't think any employer or employee believes a leaving party is compulsory under any circumstances, let alone in a pandemic. So when you say a kangaroo court set up to trap poor old Boris, I don't know why you say that. Maybe you'll explain.
Well, I'm not sure about the poor old Boris. I can understand exactly what you're saying. And there will be millions of people, in fact, who feel very, very tender after the way that they had to effectively turn their backs on loved ones at times of huge emotional drama, not least funerals and weddings. So, no, that's all true. But there is one huge mitigating factor in the particular case of Boris and in Downing Street, which was that this is a time of enormous stress and tension. I'm not underplaying what happened, but there was a situation where this very, very crowded building was working 24 hours a day. Certainly for some people, 18-hour shifts were quite normal. They were sleeping in their offices. They were constantly bumping into one another. And to all intents and purposes, they were in this enormous bubble during which sometimes people went too far. Not always, I think, with the full knowledge of Boris Johnson, although, yes, he should have paid more attention to this. And it is, of course, part of Boris's character to live and let live. So that also contributed to this. But I think from the outset, there was no doubt the point that I was making about kangaroo court is that Harriet Harman, the chairman of this committee, has made no secret of the fact that she thought that Boris was guilty from the outset. So this is a foregone conclusion, and I'd be amazed, and I'm sure Boris will be amazed, if in the end they don't find him guilty of having misled Parliament.
Then we have some kind of inkling that Boris was guilty and that he's been fined and had to pay the fine for various infringements. Also, you know, what you haven't mentioned, Trevor, is that Boris was the person imparting these rules to all of us from that podium adjacent to Chris Whitty every night at 6 o'clock for months on end, it seemed. So the idea that, you know, one rule applies and one doesn't, and noblesse oblige and all of that kind of thing, droit de seigneur. And also, you know, you've just recounted a very poignant tale of politicians and their cohorts working 18 hours a day and really having to, you know, salve a little of that exhaustion through partying of some kind, when of course, those who worked in the NHS wore that ghastly full protection that was hot and sweaty, and they couldn't have drinks, and they couldn't go to the lavatory, and they were really suffering endlessly, and that was for incredibly long shifts. And it isn't said that there was partying going on in our hospitals, is it? Is there at that time?
Well, no, look, I'm perfectly well aware of the fact that people will, and indeed I was, very angry with the whole process of lockdown, especially when people who were in positions of authority, such as Boris, were clearly breaking the rules and ended up being fined for them. I think that the bigger point is that this was a conclusion which was set in concrete before it even began. I don't think there's any question of this being an impartial and fair assessment, whether or not the evidence was there, whether or not that Boris had any form of defense or mitigating plea in answer to the allegations against him. I think that this was a cut and dried decision before the whole proceedings even began.
Let's move on to Rishi Sunak apparently being poised to wave through Boris's departing honours list, although it's being said that the knighthood for Boris's father, Stanley Johnson, might not be part of it.
Well, I think that would be absolutely appropriate because I think that a Prime Minister or any other person with a position to apply honours should not be handing them over to their nearest and dearest. So I think that Rishi was in a situation where, in the end, it would have been very unusual for any Prime Minister to veto the honours list of his predecessor. I think that it has been reduced from its original size and that certain compromises have been made. But I think that Boris will end up inflicting on this Prime Minister the unfortunate situation of 2 by-elections when he promotes 2 of his closest allies to the House of Lords.
I mean, do you think that the public as a whole welcomes these honours lists with enthusiasm and approbation, or do you think we really are beginning to have enough? We all remember the lavender list. We all remember David Cameron rewarding his own hairdresser, Lino Carbozo. I'm not saying he's not a good hairdresser. He's great, but nevertheless. And, you know, when you say there isn't much appetite for former prime ministers rewarding their nearest and dearest, OK, maybe not family members, but it's always nearest and dearest who get the gongs, isn't it? It's always the hairdresser, the secretary, the fashion stylist, and I don't know, whoever else, the chief bottle washer, isn't it? It's not people they don't know, it's people they do know. That's the whole point.
No, and I think that in fact this has brought not just the honours system into dispute over many, many years, but the whole of the House of Lords, which is actually jammed from top to bottom with the cronies of various people who are able to bestow these honours. So you're absolutely right. I'm not in any way suggesting that this honours list is a marvellous thing, and nor, in fact, have many in the past. Most of them have been people who have either paid or been devotedly loyal to the person who is dishing them out. And they come in very large numbers. The House of Lords is already crammed with people who really shouldn't be there and really don't pay much attention to what's going on in the House of Lords. They simply parade around as peers and take all the advantages without any of the duties that go with them.
So how much longer can it go on? We've got a cost of living crisis. Maybe we should cut our coat according to our cloth and limit them to 5. The top 5 gongs they fancy handing out, and not a single gong more.
Well, I'd support that. Well, I think that possibly a little more than 5, but not many. Why would they need to have positions which are effectively offers of jobs in the elected parliament of this country? They are not elected. They are part of the live democracy. They're all the same. I think that the offers of companion of honour, or not companion of honour, CBEs, OBEs, that sort of thing, that's fine. But when it comes to peerages, I think that that's much too important for prime ministers just to dish them out like lollies.
And Caroline Lucas is standing down, we hear.
Yes, I think that she'll be a great loss to the Green debates. So we'll be very sad to see her go, won't we?
Yes, we will. Trevor, thank you very much indeed. Trevor Kavanagh there.